Alright guys, before this video gets started, I just want to say, in case you missed the last video, that I fully support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will be again linking resources in the description, including petitions you can sign, places you can donate to, as well as black booktubers that we should all be supporting and watching. Thank you. Hope you enjoy this video. Hello everyone, my name is Zach. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well today. You'll notice today we are not in our usual location, though I haven't been in my usual location for like 2 months now. I filmed this video before my Guilty Pleasures video, so this is now technically a lie, but just work with me here, okay? But that's because I got the house to myself for like 20 minutes to film, and it would take like that long to set up my lights and all that junk, so I decided to film here. But anyway, forget about all of that. Today is a very special day. Well, the day I post this will be, not today, but the day I post this will be the 1-year anniversary of Papercut Book Club. I know technically the book club started with the Grisha Trilogy live show, which happened, I think, like a year and a half ago. But the first official Papercut show was June 16th, the Radio Silence show on Cat's channel. And I like to consider all the Grisha shows kind of year zero. They were kind of retconned as Papercut shows. They weren't like official. So this to me is like the official 1-year point. And so I thought it'd be a fun video to go through all the books we read together in year 1 of Papercut and give my ranking of them of enjoyment. This is not an objective ranking at all. This is entirely my own opinion. I didn't even look at what star ratings I gave. You know, some of these, my opinion has kind of changed over time due to different factors. Some of them are the same. It's just what I think, okay? If you disagree, you can do that. Make your own ranking. I'd love to see it. You know how we do here. But anyway, let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get into the 10 books we read for Papercut year 1 and what order I think they stack up in. Whenever you do a least favorite to favorite ranking, something's got to be the dog on the bottom. And if you've been following Papercut for more than 5 minutes, then you probably already know the bottom 2 on this list. The question is, which order will they come in? I think I might have the unpopular opinion here on this one, but not only because the book was bad, but also for the sheer amount of shit its fans gave me, I gotta put Neil Shusterman's Unwind at number 10. God, did I hate this freaking book. I thought it was a terrible dystopian. I thought the world building was bad. I thought the giving bad science to teens was absolutely abysmal. I struggled to figure out if it was even pro-choice or pro-life, which is something that shouldn't be hard to figure out. And if it was trying to be neutral and argue both sides, I don't even think it really did that all that well. My review of this book has continued to catch attention months after I uploaded it. Neil Shusterman fans comment on it regularly, and while some people agreed with what I had to say, most of them just got mad at me, so I just ended up delisting it. If you want to watch it, it's in my Papercut playlist that I'll put in the description. I know it's not technically fair to rate this book low because of its fans' reactions, but it's my list, I do what I want, and it's on the bottom. Sue me. Of course, coming up next at number 9 is going to be Wool by Hugh Howey. The reason I put this book at 9 over Unwind, besides the whole fan thing, is that I found the setup interesting, and I think Hugh Howey certainly wrote a scenario that could have worked. It could have been interesting. The science of the silos and kind of just the general premise of the silos I found pretty interesting. It reminded me a lot of Fallout, which Fallout 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. I sunk so many hours into that game. And so I guess it brought up the Fallout nostalgia, which, you know, is a good thing. Unfortunately, I found the book as a whole boring, and the fact that the structure of the book, you know, using these short stories he'd already written, means we got information way too early, which killed any tension later in the book. And then also, stairs. Do I really need to say more? Alright, so pick number 8, and I think this is going to be the first of a few picks that people are going to be very mad at me about, but that is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This is where this is my opinion, not an objective ranking, comes into play very heavily, because I do not think this is a bad book. I think it's pretty well written, every character has motivation, the plot's decently well set up, there's planting, there's payoff, da-da-da-da-da-da. However, I just really didn't enjoy it. It was really bad for me mentally. I felt personally like it was kind of exploitive to some real-world suffering that people suffer, but it didn't really do anything to try to stop it or bring attention to the story of real world injustices. It was just, here's a book about people in a horrible situation. It just didn't do anything for me. In fact, it did a lot of things against me. So it's being rated low, but like I said, if you rate this a lot higher, totally understand. It's just me. Number 7, a book I actually own, is going to be Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I'm not going to lie, I had to pull this off my unhaul pile to show it to you. This is where my friend Cheyenne starts writing an angry comment if she's watching. This is kind of a similar setup to Wool. I found the setup really interesting. You know, I really like occult-based books and, you know, kind of horror fantasy, and I just don't think Leigh really did anything with it. Rather than focusing on all of the weird and strange creatures we could be focusing on in the underworld, we focused on Darlington and Alex's relationship, which I found quite tedious. To be honest, I think Darlington's way too good for Alex. I thought the occult elements, the fantasy horror elements were really boring, and I didn't really need a brick-by-brick description of Yale's campus. Also, the whole thing with Mercy and the sexual assault and it being kind of easily fixed and the feces eating, it just... No. Number 6. This is where a certain someone, who shall remain nameless, is really going to take me to task over this one, but this is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. Now stop, take a deep breath, let me explain this one too. Again, this is not a bad book, and I think this is a book where if you're in a certain part of your life, it can really affect you. So I understand why people like Kat and my friend Knox really took to this novel and why it affected them so much. Here's my thing. You ever read a book when you're going through puberty and like the character makes so much sense and you identify with them, and then years later you read the book and you're like, why are you so angsty? God. That was kind of my experience with this book. The scenario of like the 6th life crisis, for lack of a better word, was something I'd already gone through, and it just reminded me of the pain and confusion and just bad times all around, and so I just didn't really want to relive it, and so seeing characters go through what I'd already been through and didn't want to think about again was just not my jam. Like I said, if you read this when you were going through a scenario like that, I totally get why this would be your thing, but it just, I didn't read it at that time in my life. I was past that point in my life, and so I just didn't, I just didn't really enjoy it, so that's me, but this is another one where it's not a bad book at all, it's just something that wasn't for me. Alright, number 5 is where we hit the halfway point, and this is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This book is just kind of milquetoast. I mean, I found it okay. It was a little long for what I remember it being, but I mean, it was a decently well-constructed fantasy story. I liked some of the world-building elements. I liked some of the characters. It was just fine. I don't know if I would have read it on my own, but I read it. I mostly enjoyed my time with it, so it's just kind of here at the middle of the list as a kind of shoulder shrug. Number 4, this is where we get to the books I really liked, which historically I have not liked things in Papercut Book Club, but that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. Like I said, I really enjoy like fantastical horror, and seeing that in a kind of YA setting to me was really interesting. I really like the concept of the Diviners and how they have like one specific power, and just the friendship group is really great. I really like a lot of the character interactions, and the whole thing with Naughty John I found pretty interesting. The one thing that brings it down to me was the ending. MacGuffin is MacGuffin, and the fact that these books are paced so slow, they feel like they're trying to be both fantasy horror and then like literary historical fiction for teens, and just to me, I could do without both of them trying to be in one place, and I just want it a little faster. I like what I'm getting, but I want more of it in a smaller space, which I feel like we could get, so that's why this is lower on the list, but don't get me wrong, I still really enjoyed it. I've read the second book, enjoyed it a little less than the first one actually, because I don't mind if the first book in a series is slow, but when it gets to the second book it shouldn't be slower, which it was. But I still plan on reading the third and fourth book. Hopefully eventually the pace will pick up and things will actually happen, but I guess that's yet to be seen. I think book number 3 on this list is going to surprise a lot of you because you were probably expecting this at number 1, but that is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. Yes, I know it's shocking I didn't put Mere Grant at number 1. I really enjoyed this book. As I'm recording this, we haven't done the live show because we ended up postponing it due to the George Floyd protests and the Black Lives Matter stuff. We didn't want to detract from all that, so we ended up delaying it a week. But I had some minor complaints about this book, and I think the problem for this book, not with this book, but for this book, is that I enjoyed Mia Grant so much, and I've read so many of her stories that this book had the most expectations to live up to. And while it did for the most part, it didn't knock my socks off because I know what Mia Grant's capable of. So why this is really good, it's not quite like feed tier. So again, is it fair to judge this book in relation to things that it has no control over? Not really. But it's my list. I do what I want. I had some minor complaints, and I think Mia Grant has written books which are almost perfect. I'd have really no complaints about. And so to have complaints about this one, it's just not her strongest work. And because I'm so familiar with her work, it kind of brought it down in my opinion. But I still think it's a really good book. I still really recommend it. And I still really want my sequel, Hatchet/Orbit. If any of you are watching, commission this sequel, please. It will make this book better when it's part of a complete story, which it obviously isn't yet. So fix that, please. Alright, so now we're down to the last two. And it's kind of funny because we're here at like my mostly wholesome favorite and my absolute edgelord favorite. And it's like, which do you pick? Well, number 2 is going to be Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. I really love Nevernight. Anyone I think that's familiar with my channel will know this. The reason I put it at number 2 is after debating it with people and talking about it and seeing Sydney's video, I do admit, yeah, it is a little edgy. Yeah, you do have to kind of buy into the kind of weird tone of the world, this kind of dry, sarcastic, dark, edgy tone of the book, which not everyone's going to be into. And, you know, I myself have criticized the first book in the series for not quite having the characters down, more specifically Mia, who I've never been the biggest fan of, but still. I don't really know what I'm saying here. Like I said, I still really love this book. People were telling me in the live chat that they didn't understand how I could say all these things against Nevernight, but still really love it. It's a flawed favorite, but it's still a favorite, so it's sitting here at number 2. And that leaves us with book number 1. And I know a certain someone who's going to be very happy about this pick. But yes, number 1 is The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. This, like I said, it's kind of the wholesome favorite. And I just enjoyed this book. I thought it was just so solid. Looking at this book with an eye towards kind of English theory, you know, storytelling theory, literary analysis, whatever term you want to use, it's just pretty much impeccable. I don't really know what I'd even really say against it. It's really well structured. It's really well set up. Everything is built up to. The characters are all really good in my opinion. It's just a really good book. And if I ever had kids one day, which I don't know if I ever will, but if I did, this is a story I'd want them to read when they're old enough to handle some of the darker elements of this story. And yeah, I don't really know what to say besides that. I mean, I will say this subverted one of my least favorite tropes, which is the lie revealed trope, which is she's been keeping this secret that she's the princess for everyone for so long, and then it's revealed and no one really gives a shit, which was just such a beautiful moment. I'm so tired of like the lie revealed and everyone, you betrayed me and I'm never going to talk to you in the angst. And suddenly people are like, okay, I guess she's a princess. She's still a girl we really like. It's so good. And I obviously really like it. I totally get why this would be Jordan's favorite book of all time. And I'm going to go ahead and give it the crown of the best book of Papercut Year 1. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe if you feel so inclined. And I will see you next time. I'm excited to see what Year 2 of Papercut is going to bring us.